On everybody, welcome to Sooner Nation, the online podcast, heartland-sports.com, heartland-sports.com. I'm Matt Hofeld along with Rich DeCray. It's summertime, but it doesn't mean there's not a bunch of stuff to talk about, particularly in relation to the Sooners. You've got NCAA Baseball Tournament starting up this week. Oklahoma heading out to Tallahassee, Florida. Florida State Seminoles hosting that regional. Women's College World Series gets started on Thursday as well. And then summer, man, there's all kinds of position battles going on with this football team as you head into the summer. How you doing, Rich? Let's start there. It's NBA Finals as well. What do you want to talk about? Where do you want to start?
Definitely not the NBA Finals. I am doing well. Thanks for asking. But when it comes to the finals and having a repeat, man, I think it's bad for the NBA.
Yes, I don't agree with that. First of all, I'm going off script, okay? Because I know in our pre-show planning we didn't have this really on the list, but I remember watching the Celtics and the Lakers repeatedly. I remember watching, even in the Eastern Conference Finals, I remember watching the Pistons and the Bulls repeatedly, and then Boston made it in the 60s, because it's before my time. I know I'm old, but in the 60s, Boston went like 10 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And so there's two things that everyone's acting like is brand new to the NBA. That you have the repeat of the finals and you have bad officiating. Now, granted, it's the first time ever you've had for 4 consecutive years the same matchup. But, it's not like we haven't seen repeat matchups. It's not like we haven't seen one team from the East be there for almost a decade. We've seen we just saw the Celtics for longer than that. So two things is, number one, this is nothing new to the NBA. It runs in cycles. And number two, I feel like it's the two best teams and the two best players in the league right now. The two best teams in the NBA are the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, and the two best teams in the league are LeBron James and Kevin Durant.
Two best players.
Two best players.
I was going to ask you who those labels were going to fall on. I knew you'd pick LeBron James from the East. I didn't know who you were going to pick from the West.
Well, it's clear that
the problem with your analysis is when neither of those players wins the MVP this year.
Well, James Harden's going to win it, and I think he deserves to win it. But when you look at you're all about the whole body of work, right? Mm-hmm. This is a year. Everybody gives Kevin Durant, especially in this part of the country, everybody gives Kevin Durant a hard time for leaving Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, basically just kind of riding on the coattails of a championship team. But the reality is, this year, Golden State needed Kevin Durant. They would not be where they are without Kevin Durant. When you look at the injury situation that they've had, Kevin Durant has been the constant of this team. He was the MVP of the MVP. He was the MVP of the finals last year. He has carried this team to the finals this year, not to the same tune of what LeBron has done with Cleveland, but still, you can't. I don't feel like you can question LeBron James. The whole LeBron James Michael Jordan debate really kind of annoys me, because it's the greatest versus the best, in my opinion. How do you differentiate between the two? They both played in two different eras of basketball. Jordan played. You got to remember. Jordan played before, and I've said this so many times, Jordan played before the hand check was illegal. Jordan played where if you came in the lane, you better be ready for war. LeBron didn't play in that era. Also, Jordan played in the era of the big men. I know you're all about the big men of the NBA, but there was legitimate big men in the NBA, and for Jordan to attack the basket and be an inside-outside guy and a defensive guy that he was in that era, LeBron didn't have that era. But, hold up. But that said, there is no denying the greatness of LeBron James. There's no denying his legacy. My soon-to-be third-grade daughter was less than a year old the last time LeBron was not in the finals. And if by some miracle he can beat Golden State, I think it solidifies him on that pedestal. I don't know that I would put him above Jordan, but I would sure maybe put him right there equal to Jordan. Again, it's the era that you grew up in. I grew up watching Jordan. And I appreciate LeBron James and his greatness, but man, it's all about the emotion of the time of your glory years, so to speak. Anyway, I interrupted you.
You didn't interrupt me at all. I was just thinking, it's quite funny to me that we're sitting here and we're having this conversation because
especially because it's not even on our roster of conversation.
This LeBron James, Michael Jordan conversation. I had that just the other day, and I read this article, and this is all I was going to bring up because I found this odd. Yes, there have been rule changes. Yes, the three-point line moved. Different things have taken place since Michael Jordan played to where LeBron James is playing. I don't think we have the number of shooters, pure shooters, in the league that we have today. But at the same time I don't, Matt, and I know you completely disagree with that. Let me put it this way. I don't think there have been players willing to take as many three-point shots back in the 90s as they do today. You disagree with that?
I think it's just the era. Everybody believes that they are currently witnessing the greatest era. Every generation, this is the greatest era of NFL football. This is the greatest era of Major League Baseball.
I'm not on that train.
But you are to an extent when you're like, well, they did have the 3-point shooters. Steve Kerr, the coach of the Warriors, was one of them.
I'm not saying
Reggie Miller.
I'm not saying they didn't exist.
No, but I'm saying
they didn't exist in the volume that they did.
But I disagree. I think they did. It's just the era that you're in. And you go back, there's the one thing I really think you can say to define these two eras was the era of the mid-'80s through late 90s was a much more physical brand of basketball. You cannot deny that. Go into YouTube and type in 90s, 80s basketball. Watch the bad boys play. But you can't deny that. And you can't deny that there were dominant big men back in that day. There are dominant big men today in this league. There's not one in the finals right now, but there are those guys in this league that are just those rim protectors. Yeah, but the point is it seems like everybody had one of those guys, and you don't have them now. But three-point shooters, they were very much alive and well. Larry Bird would like to talk to you about that if you don't believe they were alive and well during that time. Go ahead.
Here's where I was going with my statement.
This is totally off script. We had no idea. Go ahead.
Here's where I was going with that statement is I read this article that had brought up the idea in Michael Jordan's era, you couldn't defend. I think the best term to describe it is playing a zone man defense, if that makes any sense in any realm. And what I mean by that is defending a spot and forcing these superstars away from the one spot on the floor that they're known to make shots from. You couldn't do that in Michael Jordan's era. You can do that in today's era, and it's forced people to adapt. But I was having this conversation, and the only thing I was going to say to that effect was, as I was having this conversation, it was with my brother, I said, Billy, the problem with that statement in this article is that Michael Jordan's spot was at the rim.
Well,
Michael Jordan finished at the rim. The most memorable shots I can remember from Michael Jordan were either at the rim or right around the free throw line.
So you don't remember him burying the Jazz from the 3-point line?
I'm saying most memorable.
That's not the most memorable.
That
is one of the most iconic, memorable shots ever from Michael Jordan when he buries the Utah Jazz right there to seal it up from a 3-point range.
By the way, they met 2 years in a row. I'm just saying.
Point made.
Malone, Stockton, 2 years in a row against the Bulls.
I'm just saying. I'm just gonna talk for a second. I'm gonna Google up. I'm gonna Google Michael Jordan iconic moment. See what comes up.
Well, here let's talk about iconic moments since we're on this.
Because what you're doing is you're proving my point. Two different eras of basketball.
Here's the thing: is I think the greatest era, I missed it. I don't even think I got to witness it in person. And I'm not talking about Michael Jordan playing basketball. I'm talking about the late 80s. I mean, I was just a small child. I could care less about basketball. I could care less about sitting in front of a TV because I grew up when I got home from school, my backpack hit the floor. It didn't matter if I locked and shut the front door. I was gone on my bike. I didn't have to worry about it.
I'm just going to affect the microphone a little bit, but I'm going to just spin this. I just Googled Michael Jordan iconic moment photos, and the very first thing that shows up is that three-point shot against Utah.
Are you sure it's a three-pointer?
Yeah, I remember. I watched the game. I watched the game. So, okay.
Is that not near the free throw line, though?
The three-point line is not near the free throw line.
Yeah, it's 5 feet back. Whoa.
I mean, when you're talking about basketball, a game of inches, 5 feet might as well be a mile.
This is good. Matt, if we're going to have the debate of eras, though, I would have loved to have witnessed the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson era.
That was a fun era.
And then the upcoming of the Isaiah Thomas.
Here's what's great about Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, is that even, and then I know I'm old, but that goes back into college. Indiana State and Michigan State.
And a lot of people will just write this off because Michael Jordan and the Bulls weren't winning championships, but Jordan was drafted during that period.
Yeah, well, Jordan, and again, it's people, I hear arguments, and that's what's great about sports. Honestly, It's what's great about politics. Everybody has an opinion, and everybody feels like their opinion is the only opinion. I'm no exemption to that.
Right.
But the thing is that you got to pay your dues. I mean, when you don't just come up and immediately. I mean, LeBron didn't immediately win. Kobe Bryant didn't immediately win. Michael Jordan didn't immediately win. Here in Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook has not immediately won. You have to pay your dues. I remember those Bad Boys Pistons fighting off Michael Jordan as he was rising, and then I remember Michael Jordan coming around.
Yeah, the Pistons were the transitional years. They had 2 years.
Then, I think it was 3 years for the Pistons, and then you had the Celtics before that.
That's what I'm saying.
And so I'm just they're. It's all if you just take a minute and step out of the moment. You step out of the moment and you look back at the history of the NBA. You see a lot of similarities between 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, and today. You see a lot of the same players in the finals. You see a lot of the same rivalries in the conference finals. It's just that's the NBA. And all of a sudden, it's a bad thing. I don't necessarily agree that it's a bad thing. Now, all that said, my level of interest in watching the finals is based on...
a big goose egg.
Well, it's based on what happens in Game 1. I'm not going to watch Game 1, but if I follow it on the internet, if I read the recap, well, first of all, it's Thursday. I'm going to be at the Women's College World Series. But if you start seeing that LeBron and Cleveland have a chance, if they can take one of two in Golden State to start this, I'll tune in and watch. But if they get swept in Oakland, I'm not watching it. I mean, I'm just but it's not because I feel like it's a bad thing. I just feel like Golden State's that good, So
I will say this: the conference finals were extremely entertaining. I had zero interest in watching the conference finals.
I didn't.
But then
agree.
you got to Game 6 and Game 7 of each of those. Boston has a chance to close it out and essentially eliminate Cleveland from the playoff picture. Houston has the same opportunity with Golden State, and so maybe the entertainment value was it for me. It came by virtue of. Here are two teams that are expected to meet in the finals, and they're on the verge of elimination. Okay,
I'll give you that. But I would amend that statement by saying
Houston could have eliminated Golden State in 5.
I mean, did Chris Paul not do the most Chris Paul thing ever?
Get hurt?
Yeah, I mean he gets Houston to a 3-2 advantage, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the closing,
that was the
closing seconds, of that game, he's done. He hurts himself and he's done. Mm-hmm. And I'm a Clippers fan, so I've seen this lived out with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin,
it's always should have even been there.
It's always the craziest stuff. It's non-contact stuff. Mm-hmm. You pull a hamstring. That is just sometimes guys are defined by that type of legacy, and unfortunately, I'm a huge Blake Griffin fan, but. Unfortunately, for some of those guys, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul included, that's what they're defined by. And it's just, insane. All right, Oklahoma will be playing June 1st in the opener of their regional in Tallahassee. I don't mean to shut you down if you got more on NBA, but since it was unscripted, let's talk about things that are actually scripted, if you're cool with that. Sooners are going to play Mississippi State. Oklahoma draws the number 3 seed in that regional. Florida State number 1, Mississippi State number 2, Sooners 3, then Samford, not Stanford, but Samford is the number 4 seed. I feel like it's a good draw for Oklahoma. Obviously, Florida State's number 7 in the nation. They're a legitimate top 10 program. But when you look at the other 3 teams there, you look at Mississippi State, you look at Samford. I like Oklahoma. I like them in this opener. I hate the fact that it's an 11 a.m. start on Friday, but I don't think Oklahoma got a bad draw. I thought, honestly, when you sent me the message where Oklahoma was going, I was thinking they were going to be either in Athens, Georgia, or they were going to be in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I think Athens was better of the 2 locations between Fayetteville and Athens. I think Athens favored Oklahoma a little bit more. This Florida State maybe is just a slight step below, above Athens, but not much. And so I don't think the Sooners will take an early exit. Last year we saw them win 1 and then get swept out. I don't know that we'll see that happen this year. What Oklahoma proved in the Big 12 tournament was that they're a deeper team than what they had showed early in the season. Early in the season, you would go and you'd see them win on Friday, you'd see them win on Saturday, and then just get demolished on Sunday because they weren't that deep. But you got to give Skip Johnson credit for the way he's developed pitching over the course of the season. They just ran out in the Big 12 tournament. You watch that final game against Baylor, and by the way, they lost to the hottest team in the Big 12. The Baylor Bears went on to win the tournament over TCU. But to me, Richard, what Oklahoma accomplished in Bricktown, it shows 2 things. It shows, number 1, development of pitching. A guy like Devin Perez coming back and having just a stellar start after losing a starting role. And the second thing it shows to me is team unity. They did that Bricktown run. They did that without Steele Walker for the entire tournament, and they did it without Kyler Murray for most of the tournament. But they were a team that just, their mantra was next man up. And you saw guys like... you saw guys like Pete Hughes' son jump in there. I'm blanking on his first name for some reason. I don't know why, but just jump in there and take and that's a great story because he could have left. Pete's at Georgia. And he could be playing in Georgia right now, but he stays in Oklahoma, played very little this season, but came up big in Bricktown. You see Dominic DiRenzo coming out and playing in right field because Oklahoma needed an outfielder. I think this team is in a good spot going into the tournament. I think they're in a better spot as a team than they were a year ago at this time. Thoughts?
There's an underlying storyline here.
Thomas Hughes, sorry.
With Oklahoma,
I knew that it would come to me.
With Oklahoma and Mississippi State that we'll get to here in a second because I'm really good about informing you of these things. I'm not good about informing you about big news. I do like the draw for Oklahoma because first off, I think Oklahoma can compete. And when you look at a team, not to discredit what Samford has done, but they're an automatic bid. Otherwise, they likely don't make the tournament. Then you've got Mississippi State, obviously playing in the SEC. I believe it's 6 teams from the SEC.
At least it's not 12 from the made in softball.
13. Yeah, but the SEC is proven that they're a solid conference when it comes to sports, and that's no exception for baseball. So I'm expecting Oklahoma and Mississippi State really to, whoever wins, challenge Florida State in that second round. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida State lose one game in this regional. The underlying story here with Oklahoma and Mississippi State is that there's 3 players who played for Team USA that are familiar with one another. It just so happens to be Jake Irvin, who we're expecting to start in Game 1, and Mississippi State's pitcher Pilkington if that's how you say that name properly. But still, Walker was also on that team. So we're going to see, I think we'll see some of that competitive nature. You talk about some sibling rivalry. I think that's going, not that they're siblings, but you'll see a similar competitiveness come out of those three. And it should be a pretty entertaining game.
Yeah, yes, I agree. And again, I like Oklahoma's. When you get into the tournament, when you get into the regional and then the super regional, more so the regional, in my opinion, it's all about depth. Because that regional, it's a double elimination, but there's so many teams there. You have 4 as opposed to the super where
the super is a regular weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But the regional, you could end up playing 6 games at a double elimination format. So it's all about depth.
Here's an issue that I have. Florida State, if Florida State was not hosting a regional or even moving into the super regional, I would feel pretty confident about beating them. They're 47-13, but whether you knew this or not, only 9 of those wins have come on the road. 30 of those wins have come at home, and the rest are at neutral sites.
Who has in your opinion, I'm going to cross over here. By the way, Heartland Sports on Facebook, those of you guys that are watching us on Facebook, thanks for joining us. Jimmy Vasquez agrees with me that the jazz shot was Jordan's biggest shot ever. Okay. So I'm just saying, you're a puppy. You don't know things. Who has the best advantage this weekend? The best shot to come out of the weekend? Florida State baseball or Florida State softball? Because Oklahoma's involved one way or another in both.
Yeah, and I think it's Florida State baseball.
I agree.
Obviously the stakes are a little higher for softball.
For sure. Sooners play 11 a.m. Friday against Mississippi State. And then they will, if they win, they'll play the winner of Florida State-Samford. Let's just pencil in Florida State there. In the second game on Saturday, no time is determined yet on those. If they lose, they're going to play, again, pencil in Samford there. And the first game on Saturday, still no times listed. And that game could go all the way, or this regional could go all the way through Monday if necessary. And again, like I said, you could end up playing in a double elimination format 6 games. Where in the super regional, the most you're going to play is 3. So it's all about depth this weekend. And what I'm just curious, final question is, what Oklahoma proved or what they showed in Bricktown last week by making it from Wednesday through Saturday, did they prove enough to you to be confident in the depth of this team, particularly the guys out of the bullpen, or you still have some concerns coming into it?
Yes and no. Can I answer this going both ways? The thing for me is we saw that rotation change a little bit. As Skip Johnson, you've mentioned Devin Perez. He opted for a freshman in that starting role for a small stretch of the season. Does that give me a ton of confidence that Devin Perez is where he needs to be physically and mentally? I think he won the starting job back for an obvious reason.
I think he won the starting job back because they were out of arms. I don't think he'll start.
Really?
If he starts, it won't be the first 3 games, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's just, we'll see what the weekend brings, but I think he got the starting job back because, Skip's looking over and going, man, I burned that guy, oh, there's Devin. Hey, Devin, can you come back out here?
Okay,
but what I am going to say is that the team will have more confidence in him when he goes on the mound. Because he's going to pitch this weekend. And they'll have more confidence in him at that point. But I don't think he's got his starting job back.
Okay.
He won't be one of the top 3, in my opinion.
By the way, I pulled up Michael Jordan's best shot, and it's not from the 3-point line.
Whatever.
It's from right behind the free throw.
Whatever. Iconic shot, man. Iconic shots.
Yeah, this is what that is.
It's
called The Shot. It must be called that for a reason, right?
Is it? This
Bulls.
That's Bulls Cavaliers. No, that's not it. That's
1989.
No, that's not it.
Game 5, down by 1. Boom,
yeah, that's over Craig Elo. That's Craig Elo. I remember that. But you need to look the one against Utah. That's.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's move to the Women's World Series. Oklahoma there, looking for the three-peat. I'm just going to put you on the spot. On the Oklahoma side of the bracket, you've got Oregon, Washington, Arizona State. Sooners will play Washington at 1:30 on Thursday afternoon and then face the winner or loser of Oregon, Arizona State, depending on what happens with that first game. The other bracket is the Florida Gators, who Oklahoma beat in the championship series last year, UCLA, Florida State, and Georgia. I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot and ask you to tell me, when the championship series begins on Monday, or is it Sunday, whenever it begins, I think it's Monday, who's going to be in it?
I honestly believe Oklahoma's got a real shot at it. We've seen, and this is something that I wanted to discuss at some point in time, is Oklahoma's been credited with an offense, an explosive offense. We've talked about Jocelyn Alo. We've talked about Fale Polima. We've talked about just really the consistency of Sidney Romero. Nicole Penley can hit one out of the park. And then you've got just really good hitters like Kaylee Clifton. All around, they are a solid hitting team. But I think what their strongest suit is defense. And I've seen this Oklahoma team take chances here and there. I've seen it pay off. And I've seen some of those chances not work out as anticipated or even expected. But needless to say, I think they're so confident in their defense, they tend to take those chances because they know the offense is going to back them up. But again, that defense is their strong suit, and I think it's what's going to carry them to the championship series. Who they'll meet on the other side of the bracket, I think Florida's got a good shot. I'm not putting them there. Who I'm actually going to put there is UCLA. I just think the Pac-12, well represented here, speaks to the level of competition that they had to face all year long. Washington was the number one team for the longest time. They had a 30-game win streak going themselves. This year, I know Oklahoma was in that same boat, but when it comes down to it, UCLA is the best team in that conference, and I think they're the second team in.
I want to agree with you, but I can't.
I mean, Florida was almost eliminated in supers.
Well,
not that means
Oregon
anything.
lost to Kentucky in the opening round.
I didn't put Kentucky in there, but you're going Florida. I can already tell.
I am, and here's the reason why. I mean, you and I have covered this event, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a member of the media and to have the credentials to be there. And I love watching OU play, obviously, but I'm that guy who goes and just sits in my little chair there on the media booth, and I watch as much of it as I can because I enjoy this event. And by the way, if you live in Oklahoma City and you've never been to this event, if you like sports, you need to mark this event down and be there because it's not what you think. If you've never been there, it's not what you think. It's greater than what you think. Football is my sport. I love football. I am true blue football. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But this is, in my opinion, the most... I have more fun covering this event than I do any other sport that we've ever covered or talked about. It's just that much. The crowd is crazy. The action on the field is crazy. That said, you and I have been there for several years watching this event because Oklahoma's been there. How many times in those years has the Pac-12 had a disappointing showing in this event? It's almost every year, is it not?
It is. You're right there, but how many times have they actually sent? Was it 4 teams they're bringing?
Yeah, but like 2 years ago,
I think their only representative has been Oregon when I've been.
2 years ago, Oregon was the number one
Washington.
seed. Yeah, Washington. UCLA's been there. Remember, we saw that coach from UCLA get kicked out for going after the umpire that one time. So the Pac-12 has been there. Oregon was the number one team in the country a couple years ago, much like they are right now, and they were 0-2. And they're out of here. And that's when Mike White went on this little tirade about how the strike zone's different and how they call it different for the other girls and they do it for his girls. I'm just saying this could be the year of the Pac-12, but it's one of those things where they've got to show it to me.
Right.
But basically, Oklahoma's joined the Pac-12 for this opening round because they're in the bracket with Oregon, Washington, and Arizona State. And Oregon legitimately scares me because I just think in my mind what happened when Oklahoma went to Eugene to play them. But
they are the Pac-12 champion. Oregon is.
I can't pick a Pac-12 team until a Pac-12 team shows me that they can advance in this thing. And I've not seen that yet in all my years of covering it. So I'm going to Oklahoma and Florida again.
Okay.
That's just me. What in your opinion, what does Oklahoma need to do to advance to the championship series? What needs to be, what area, you were there for the regional, you were there for the super regional. What do you need this team to, in your mind, they did this good in the regional, they did this good in the super regional. What needs to be great for this team to advance into this championship series?
Man, here, the reality for me...
I'm coming hard with the questions today, bro.
The reality for me is that I think Oklahoma just needs to be themselves. Because I told you, I believe defense is their strong suit. It's something they can rely on. When you've got Paige Parker and you've got Paige Lowry, it doesn't get much better than that in the circle. Especially when softball players can pitch upwards of, what would you say, 300 pitches in a weekend and not ever have a problem? They may be fatigued, they may be worn out, but they can do it if called upon.
Well, the motion, I mean, and people talk about this, the motion for a softball pitcher
it doesn't put as much stress on your elbow.
Right. Or your shoulder.
Yeah, that's for sure. So my assessment for Oklahoma is just be themselves. They didn't get to a regular season record of 50-3 for no reason.
No, I agree. And that's a perfectly logical answer. But I think they've got to be great from the circle. I semi like what Patty Gasso's doing by bringing in Paige Lowry. She had her start in that opener of the Super Regional against Arkansas. A little bit caught. I know Arkansas tried to play it off a little bit, but there's no way that didn't catch them off guard. But Paige Lowry gave up the only runs that the Sooners have given up in this whole NCAA tournament. I'm just of the opinion, don't fix what's not broken. You know what I'm saying? And for 53 games, most of those games, it's worked out fantastic to have Paige Parker start and then Paige Lowry come and be your closer and get the change of pace there. Patty Gasso knows a lot more about softball than I ever will know. But I do feel like they've got to be perfect from the circle, especially against Oregon.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I don't know that Oregon has some kind of a mental edge. We talk about the development of these teams. We talk about the evolving of these teams. And if Oregon's expecting to play an Oklahoma who has this mindset of Oregon's just better than us, it's not going to happen because Oklahoma, I know Patty Gasso will tell you this, and you can ask her any day of the week. They always feel like they're playing the underdog, and it's because of the scheduling that they have to do.
And she's talking about that.
Yeah, she'll allude to that as well. And so when you look at a team like a Florida State and an Oklahoma and know that they have to take different paths than someone who plays in the Pac-12 or someone who plays in the SEC to get to the Women's College World Series, knowing all of that stuff, knowing that that's what Patty Gasso will tell you, there's no way that I can buy into the fact that these players think that they're the worst team out of the 8.
No, there's no one that's going to have a mental advantage over Oklahoma.
Right.
They're back-to-back defending champs. They're seasoned.
And they shouldn't have even won it.
You talk about mental advantages. Arkansas lost before they even stepped on the field. There was such a advantage Oklahoma had over Arkansas. They did in their post game. They were excited they even scored on Oklahoma. Forget beating Oklahoma. They were like, "Hey, we scored on them." You know, when you say stuff like that, you're done.
Did I ask you the question of when you're a visiting team playing in Marita Hines or on Marita Hines Field, and the first person you see is Paige Parker? I mean, does that just give you this intimidation factor?
Yeah, she's the greatest. She's the best pitcher in the country.
Well, I'm asking. Did I ask you that when we walked into the stadium?
You didn't. But I feel like
I told that to someone.
Truthfully, I feel like Missouri took a better mental approach than Arkansas did when facing Oklahoma, and I don't think Missouri deserved to be in this tournament. But they were like, hey, we're here. We're going to give it our best. We deserve. I mean, they thought we deserved to be here. And
it's kind of that nothing left to lose.
Well, that's true. And
whereas
Arkansas
season was on.
They said that. They even said after the first game, they were like, hey, we've never been here before. We've gotten. They literally said we've got nothing left to lose, and everything to gain because this is as far as our program has ever made. And so you just kind of knew after that game 1 press conference that I said to one of the other members of the media that was there at the time, I said, this is going to be a shutout tomorrow. Paige Parker throws. and it certainly was. I was really kind of hoping that it was going to be a run rule because it was so stinking hot. Yeah. My goodness. It was
one
so
run,
hot.
Matt. We needed one run.
I know. Okay, World Series, Oklahoma plays 1:30 Thursday afternoon. All those games will be televised at ESPN. You can catch it there. You can follow us on Twitter at Sports Heartland. At Sports Heartland on Twitter. We'll be there kind of giving live updates. We'll have recaps and interviews and so forth following Oklahoma's games. Also, you can catch us on Facebook at Sports Heartland or Heartland Sports on Facebook, and then our website, Sports. I can't even talk right now.
The website is heartland-sports.com.
Thank you. Thanks for helping me out with that. All right, Oklahoma football is heading into the summer. The summer workouts are getting ready to start. Let me start the football segment, which everyone's tuned in for is football. Let me start the football segment by asking you a baseball question. As an Oklahoma football fan, all right, solely as an Oklahoma football fan, not as an Oklahoma fan, not as a Sooners fan, but as an Oklahoma football fan, how much do you want to see Kyler Murray on the field this weekend in Tallahassee?
I don't.
Why not?
It is strictly as a football fan is because we're skipping ahead, and this is going to be a preview to something I was going to bring up later. But this isn't the first hamstring injury that Kyler Murray's had. If you remember correctly, he sat out a good portion of the spring with what was called a tweak to his hamstring. Now he slides in a second. He pops up. Something's whoa!
Use your words,
something's
Richard.
Clearly
whatever I have is contagious.
Right. Something's clearly not right. And so, if you're hoping for Kyler Murray to be your starter in the fall, you don't want him potentially making that injury worse if he's not 100%.
Yeah, I can't say anything different than what you already said. Oklahoma, the quarterback battle officially begins this coming week once their summer workouts start, but it's going to begin potentially with Kyler Murray not even being there, depending on how far Oklahoma makes it in this tournament. And you got to. I mean, everything. I feel like the approach of this coaching staff is everything in them wants to say, Kyler, here's the ball, lead the team. That's what they want, but they can't seem to make any distance between Kyler and Austin Kendall. And now you've got the regional going on in Tallahassee. You've got the Major League Baseball draft coming up in less than a month. I mean, how much of a distraction it's time. I get it. Baseball's still going, but it is time. It is officially time to turn the page to football. And the very first page you turn, there's no Kyler Murray there. And at what point does the distraction of baseball begin to take away from the progress of football? Because this is a kid, in Lincoln Riley's own words, neck and neck quarterback race coming out of the spring. One guy's there on campus, the other guy's not. One guy's going to get drafted and become a millionaire, the other guy's not. It's about to get real, and we're about to see what Kyler Murray wants to do with his future. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time now. We're getting very close to what we're about to, to really fish or cut bait time. There's another phrase we used to say, crap or get off the pot. We're about there with this spot. All right, so the two candidates first of all, we agree that it's two candidates. This is a two-horse race for quarterback, right? Because with all due respect, I did see one thing on Twitter claiming that Tanner Schaefer was a dark horse in this quarterback race. And with all due respect to Tanner Schaefer, I'm sure he's a great kid and a phenomenal athlete. He's not in this race.
Tanner Mordecai has a better shot of being in the race than this guy.
I agree. But there is no other quarterbacks in this race other than Kyler Murray or Austin Kendall. And when fall camp starts in August, there's only going to be two quarterbacks in this race. The other guys are competing whether they're going to get a redshirt year, whether they're going to be a scout team year, or will they, actually get to suit up for the games. Who can I be on the traveling roster, please? Those are their things.
Asking nicely.
Yeah, this is between Kyler Murray and Austin Kendall. And so what I want to do is between the two of us, and there's a chance that we're going to have some of the same things, but I want to go pros and cons of each quarterback, and let's you and I, in our own Heartland Sports way, figure out who we believe should be the starting quarterback for the University of Oklahoma, and then we'll just send Lincoln Riley a nice little email or tweet or something and say, hey, we've decided.
Lincoln Riley on Twitter.
Which is
we may get a response from that one.
Which is a great Twitter account to follow, by the way. All right, so let's start with, I'm going to say the challenger. There is no there's no defined winner or champion or whatever here. It is neck and neck according to Lincoln Riley, but you talk to anybody, they're going to tell you this is Kyler Murray's skill to lose.
And I think there's a reason for that. That's because Kyler Murray already beat out Austin Kendall for the number 2 job last year,
right?
Which then gave Austin Kendall that red shirt.
But here's the other side of that is that the reason Kyler Murray beat out Austin Kendall is because they needed to redshirt Austin Kendall because Austin Kendall had to play as a true freshman in 2016. You won him there around for a little bit. Now Kyler Murray's available now, so I'm going to get that year back on Austin Kendall. Right. So, hey, Austin, you're going to redshirt. Kyler, congratulations, you won the backup job. Now, that said, we're going to make Austin Kendall the challenger, and we're going to do this. We're going to do this back and forth between you and I. Let's start with the pros. Do you want to do pros and cons on Austin Kendall?
Yeah,
or do you want to do pros? Do you want to do it with pros with Austin and then pros with Kyler Murray? And then cons and cons.
I think we do pros and cons.
All right, so let's start. You want to go first?
I'll go first. We can alternate, and I'll go first with Austin Kendall.
Pros of Austin Kendall.
Pros first, okay.
Huh?
I was going cons
No,
first.
you always go with pros first, man. You start with pros.
I like to hear the negative news first, and then the positive.
you like to tear them down and then build them up.
That's right. That's right. If we're going with pros first, then the first one I have for Austin Kendall is simply arm strength. I believe Austin Kendall has the bigger arm out of the two, and he's proven, whether that is in a small sample size, I know he's played in 2 games as well as spring games. The small sample size, he's proven that he has the ability to throw the deep ball. Yeah. Something Oklahoma's a big fan of, especially with a guy like Marquise Brown on the roster.
Yeah, for sure. You got to get underneath that kid, no doubt. Yeah, I'm with you. That's one of mine. So I'm just going to say the first thing I'm going to say is the arm strength there is there as well, and we saw that displayed in Oklahoma spring game. The kid can throw the football, and like most quarterbacks who come into any college, but specifically the University of Oklahoma, you get in the strength and conditioning program, you add on muscle weight and you get a little more control. And look what we saw with Baker Mayfield's arm in the 3 years that he was on campus in Norman. So the kid's got a strong arm. Second thing I'm going to go with as a pro with Austin Kendall is that he is a pro-style type quarterback. What I mean by that is he's not going to run around like Kyler Murray can run around. He's got good size. He's 6'2", 220. He's a gunslinger type mentality. He's a guy. He did show in the spring game that he can run, but he's a guy that's going to hurt you by keeping him in the pocket. Opposing defenses, when you look at the 2 different styles of these quarterbacks, opposing defenses are going to want to flush Austin Kendall out of the pocket and keep Kyler Murray in the pocket because of the different style. But Austin Kendall has that size and that body type to set up in the pocket and really hurt you downfield. So my second pro is that he's a pro-style quarterback.
It's funny because my second pro is the same with a twist.
All right.
So I said that, yeah, we've mentioned the arm strength there, but I also believe that Austin Kendall is a better runner than what he's being given credit for, and that he can be elusive when he needs to be. Now, I'm not expecting him to be a Kyler Murray, but I think he can be somewhere in the neighborhood of what Baker Mayfield did with his feet.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with that, but I see what you're saying. I think he's in between. I mean, he's somewhere below Baker in the next guy, whoever would that be? Maybe it's Tanner Schaefer. I don't know. But maybe he's a better runner than Tanner Schaefer, but not as good as Baker. Yeah, well, Trevor Knight was such an awkward runner. Trevor Knight never really lived up. I mean, every time Trevor Knight ran, it looked like he was he was top heavy. Like his head just kept coming down.
Like a small child is what
yes, exactly. But anyway, I don't think he's as good as Baker out of the pocket. I think that was one of Baker's strengths. And the reason why Baker was so good at it is because when Baker scrambled from the pocket, his eyes remained downfield. Most guys scramble from the pocket, and they're looking for the linebacker, the defensive end. They're looking, do I run? Do I pass? Baker, when he scrambled from the pocket, his eyes were downfield unless it was a designated run. Anytime he was flushed, and think about I go back to 2 years ago, 2016, when he made that play against Tulsa, where he scrambled one way, scrambled the other way, and then he finds Mark Andrews in the end zone because the entire time he was scrambling, eyes were downfield. He could just feel where the defenders were chasing him down.
My final
yes,
is that, again, sample size. I'm quoting sample size here, but Austin Kendall has proven to be a highly accurate passer. Mm-hmm. I believe his official stat line is just over 72%, and that's definitely something that gives him a hand up in this competition over someone like Kyler Murray, who that may be one of my cons. We'll have to wait until we get there.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, keeping us on pins and needles. My final thing is with Austin Kendall, is most people forget how experienced he is in this offense. He's been on campus since 2016. Right. He played in 2 games as a true freshman. Of course, the most famous thing he did in 2016 was say that Ohio State was just a basic defense, and the Buckeyes got all excited to play against Oklahoma's backup quarterback. But, I mean, the kid's, he's 3 years in 16, 17, 18. He's 3 years into this program, and so it's not like it's an inexperienced kid coming in here, not knowing the offense, not knowing his role in that offense. He has more experience in this offense than what most people give him credit for or even think about it. I mean, this is a kid that has a good command of where the other player. What makes you a great quarterback is not just knowing your job, but knowing everybody else's job. And once you know everybody else's job, then you go from being good to great. And after 3 years in this program, he should know everyone else's job. And I think that's a pro coming in. Going to cons, my first on the list of cons is he's just not explosive. I mean, you talked about his speed. I said he's probably better than Tanner Schaefer, not as good as Baker Mayfield. He did show more speed than what we thought there in the spring game. But the reality is, I would be shocked if he wins this. I would be shocked that they run him to the extent that even they ran Baker Mayfield. He's not as explosive as a runner as Kyler Murray. And if Kyler Murray's not in this equation, then this isn't even an issue for Austin Kendall. But because Kyler Murray is in the equation, you can do a lot more with Murray than what you can do with a guy like Austin Kendall, and that works against Austin in this competition.
I'm going to use the same one. This was actually the second one I had listed. Was I don't see this it factor or this wow factor. It's not that Austin Kendall isn't a capable quarterback. It's what does he bring that sets him apart? What does he bring that is uniquely Kendall? And I struggled to come up with an answer. So when I'm looking at the cons, I'm saying he's a consistent player, and he will be a consistent player, but where's the wow factor?
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do think I think there's potential to see that wow factor with his arm. But I think, again, the flip side, the other guy in this race, you're going to see it with his arm.
He already has a wow factor.
Right, but you're going to see it with his arm and his legs. All right, so your second con is going to be what?
Oh, we'll get into this. Is that Austin Kendall has no starting experience on the Division I level. He's played in 2 games. We've mentioned that was as a true freshman. And again, this is comparatively, because if we were setting him up to be compared to someone who was in the exact same boat as he was behind Baker Mayfield, it wouldn't really be an issue. But it's the fact that Kyler Murray's already started 8 games and then started another one at Oklahoma. So he has 9 games, I believe it's 9 games of starting experience on the Division I level playing football whereas Austin Kendall has none, and I think that's a drawback for him.
Right. No, I agree. In fact, that was my second con. I just wrote down there 2 games. I mean, he's only played in 2 collegiate games. It was garbage time, and you, as you said, Kyler Murray started the West Virginia game. He started as a true freshman in College Station in 2015. That's when you're looking. There's one thing. Anybody who's ever played this game or coached this game knows there's one thing to do it in practice, one thing to do it in scrimmage. But once the lights come on and that stadium is at capacity and you're on national television, it's a whole different ballgame, and you really never know what you're going to get out of that guy until he has those experiences. And Austin Kendall doesn't have those experiences. My third and final con, because I had the same thing as number 2 as you, my third and final thing is, and maybe it's what you were talking about with the it factor, but I put down here kind of rally factor or even a swagger to him. You see that in Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray takes the approach that, yeah, I'm playing baseball, but you know what? I'm going to come over here for the spring game, and oh, by the way, this is my team. When you watch how he interacts on the sidelines with his teammates, when you watch how the teammates rally to him, there's just something there that Austin Kendall, and again, you call it the it factor, I'm calling it the rally swagger factor. You don't see that from Kendall. Austin Kendall looks like a guy mentally who's trying to win the starting job, and maybe that's a great motivator for him. Kyler Murray looks like a guy that, hey, this is my team. So that's my final con. What do you got on your final?
The final con that I have is, and I said this previously to this conversation, was that Austin Kendall's already lost the job once to Kyler Murray. Regardless of the reasons there, it happened. I just don't know that he can... I just don't know that he can take history and change it now. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. We want to jump into pros for Kyler Murray. Yeah, I'll give you my first.
Let's go over. No, let's cross it. Let's cross the locker room and talk about Kyler Murray again. Not the starter, but you have to say he's the front runner. We've got 3 pros. What you go with number 1? What is it?
Yeah, the number 1 pro I have for Kyler Murray is it's not only his speed, because people will talk about that all day. Mm-hmm. It is his vision. He doesn't rattle off. I just pulled up his stats here. An average of 10 yards per carry. You don't rattle that off without having some kind of vision, whether you're a quarterback or a running back. It's his speed plus his vision that makes him this extreme threat as a dual threat quarterback, and you always have to account for where he is on the field. I believe it opens up more opportunities for you. It allows you to expand that playbook and throw some different things in. Yeah, Kyler Murray was successful in the Wildcat last year. We'll see how they implement that this year and him running if he is named the starter.
Yeah, I have speed and versatility, which basically is what you just said. The guy, I think Hollywood undoubtedly is the fastest player on this team, but Murray's not too far behind him. He has that, you said the wow factor earlier. His speed, just go back to the spring game. Go back to that West Virginia start, when he does that rolls out that 55-yard run against the Mountaineers. You look at a guy like that and you go, wow, kid's fast, and I think Lincoln Riley has so many different things that he can do with a player like Kyler Murray than what he can do with a guy like Austin Kendall, that right there is maybe the biggest asset he has to him. He's going to throw, maybe not to the same accuracy as a guy like Austin Kendall, but I don't think his accuracy is terrible. We're going to talk about that. But he's going to throw the ball, but what he's really going to do is he's going to spread you out. And he's not he's not the same player as the kid from Louisville, but you can do a lot of the same things. You have to play him to run. You know what I'm saying? You have to. Your defensive ends can't come hard because you've got to play containment. So your pressure's going to have to come up the middle. And there's so many things that you can do with a guy like that I think just that alone. I mean, you bring your defensive ends have to contain. You bring that rush up the middle. All of a sudden, you've got a draw play that you can go left or right with and just get around that initial rush with a fullback blocking or something, and your guys down the field 30, 40 yards. That is a big asset to have as a play caller when you know your quarterback can do that on any given down. Mm-hmm. So speed and just whatever they can do with him. My second thing, and because we're retreading some conversation, but if you're going to say lack of experience is a con for Austin Kendall, you have to bring it back around and say that the experience that Kyler Murray has, I mean, it's not like he came from junior college. You know, he came from College Station. He started in that program, and if there was ever a program, if you were to make your top 5 list of programs whose expectations are unrealistic based off of what they've ever produced, you're going to have Texas A&M at or near the top of that list. So he knows what it's like to play under huge expectations. He knows what it's like to play in front of a big crowd. He knows what those national television games are like. He's even done that at the University of Oklahoma. So his experience and his speed, suddenly you have a pretty good list of assets or pros for Kyler Murray. Your second one.
My second pro is, I'm quoting sample size here, because it's in a different system, because it's under Lincoln Riley, because it's the Oklahoma offense. But what Kyler Murray was being asked to do, he proved to be effective, especially against Big 12 opponents. I think that comes into play, knowing that he has, it really ties in with experience. So knowing that he has that starting experience, knowing that he can fall back on that and be a confident player, whether he's passing or he's running, I think it leads to him being more effective as a starter rather than less effective.
We'll go into your next one then.
Oh, sweet. Number 3, I do truly believe this, and this is going to be a short, simple point.
There's no such thing with you.
Yep, Kyler Murray is the best all-around athlete at the position on the roster.
Okay, at the position. I thought you were going to say like on the team, and I was getting ready like to
at the position on the roster.
All right. Yeah, I can't argue that. I'm just gonna say my third, because I think my third is going to lead you into one of your cons, okay? And then we can just talk about it, right?
Okay.
So my third and final pro that I have with Kyler Murray is accuracy in passing.
That's not a con for me.
Oh, it's not.
The only area, this is a con for me.
Okay.
The only area that I would like to see improvement is in his ability to throw the deep ball.
Okay.
And we didn't get to see that last year. We didn't get to see that when he stepped in. We got to see it in the spring game, and I marked it as suspect. It was the same situation in College Station. So can he improve upon that? It's suspect at this point in time. It's a con when, and again, this is comparatively, it's a con when compared to Austin Kendall.
Okay, I get that. I really thought we were going to have some sort of debate here, but we're not. Murray was 18 of 21 last season, 359 yards, 85.7% completion rate for an average of 7. And again, you
how did you get 85? I'm looking at an average.
You mentioned sample size multiple times, and so it's worth noting. It's a small sample size, but his yards per average, 17.10 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I do think, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said with the con, but when I'm going back and I'm thinking, because I've been working on our football preview for the offense. By the way, it's going to be spectacular. It comes out June 1st, heartland-sports.com. But I'm looking back, I'm watching videos on Oklahoma's receivers, and I'm thinking back to the Bedlam game where like Hollywood Brown scored like a 60-yard touchdown just coming on a slant play. And Oklahoma has the type of guys where you have to respect their ability to stretch the field, but the reality is you get these guys in space. There's another big play in the Bedlam game where, again, Marquise Brown, he catches a screen pass, gets a huge block from Dimitri Flowers, and he springs loose. When you have that type of speed, and then you have possession guys like CeeDee Lamb, like Grant Calcaterra, even though I think Charleston Rambo's going to have a good first year for this team, you don't really have to go vertical very much. And so I think the accuracy is what you need. Those mid-tier throws.
You're going to come in and do a Baylor like they did in Norman.
Especially if they're giving you a 15-yard cushion.
They gotta win.
Because here's the thing: you have to, when you have the speed of Marquise Brown, you have to respect that.
Right.
There are not a lot of corners. I don't know if there is even a single corner in this league that can run with Marquise Brown stride for stride. So you have to respect that. Come underneath it with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and and bam, you got 5-6 yards at a time. So accuracy, my final con. You've already mentioned, my final pro. You've already mentioned one of your con, which was the deep ball. My first con coming in here is going to be the size of Kyler Murray. He's not a big dude, and when you look at the quarterbacks on the roster, he is by far the smallest. I mean, every quarterback on Oklahoma's roster is, I'm just going to read, Reese Clark, 6'3", Austin Kendall, 6'2", Connor McGinnis, 6'4", our boy Tanner Schaefer, 6'3", Kyler Murray's coming in at 5'10". And the thing about it, you've been up close to him in baseball, I've been up close to him in baseball. In my prime, in my heyday, I was 5'9".
You still are.
And I'm staring eye to eye with Kyler Murray. Dude's not 5'10". But no quarterback, no football player is ever the size. I remember one time I went to my coach because I was looking through the program. And they had the roster there, starting lineup, all that stuff in the program. And they had me listed. Again, my heyday, I was 5'9", 155. Okay, that was it. That was the prime of Matt's physical ability. 5'9", 155. They've got me listed in the program at 6'2", 170. And I just remember taking that to my coach. I'm going, what? Come on, you know? Now, programs across the board don't exaggerate to that much. But I'm telling you, I've been next to Kyler Murray. I've stood there with him in that dugout at Eldell Mitchell Park. He's a lot closer to my 5'9" than he is to someone else's 5'10". Size is an issue because you've already mentioned hamstrings, but also you start taking those hits when you run. How much is that going to affect him?
Which is where I was actually going next, was the hamstring issue. And you have to question if this is a reoccurring thing, can he stay healthy for an entire season? Kyler Murray, we've seen it as a running quarterback. Not only does he hang the ball way out there, but I don't know that he's going to be a slide first guy. I think he's going to be, I can outrun you to the sideline, so I'm going to beat you to that point. Needless to say, if that's a consistent injury, it's something that obviously they're going to have to deal with as a team and as a program. And when the starting quarterback goes down, it's never a good thing, which actually leads me into the final con that I have for Kyler Murray. And it's that assuming Kyler Murray stays for this year, they only get him for 1 year.
Right.
Do you groom a guy for 1 year to be your starting quarterback, or do you fall back to Austin Kendall?
I think to answer your question, because my third con is baseball. I mean, we're on the same page. There is a major decision coming for Kyler Murray because every projection is that he's going to be a top
40.
Yeah, well, he's going to be a late first round, early second round pick. And he's going to have to make a commitment because those teams are not going to invest in him if he's committed to baseball. I mean, committed to football. And anybody's watched this kid play, he's a star. He's a star in both sports, but his future is baseball. And so if you're the New York Yankees and you're coming to Kyler and say, hey, Kyler, we're going to take you with our first pick of the second round. But before we do that, we want to know, what is your commitment level? I think there's a play here where Kyler can say, here's what I want to do, sir. I want to play baseball. But it's always been my dream to start in college and play a season. So I will get drafted by you if you'll take me. I will sign a contract with you. We'll put insurance on it both for you and for me. I will be at summer ball, but then this fall I'm going to be in Norman. I'm going to play one season and then I'm yours. I think that's probably the most realistic opportunity that Kyler Murray has. And to answer your question, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm taking that.
Right.
Because I'm sitting down with Austin Kendall. I'm going to say, Austin, you're the future of our program. You're only a redshirt sophomore. After this year, you've got 2 years left. You're going to be the first guy off the bench. We're going to have a couple packages that's going to come in here for you. You will play this year. And then starting next year, starting 2019, this is your team for 2 years if you want it. That's the conversation I'm having if I'm Lincoln Riley, because I will take Kyler Murray for 1 year if that's all I can get him for, because I think the explosiveness, the upside of what you can do with this kid, again, the coach in me is licking his chops with the type of things you can do with Kyler Murray. And
right.
I know Lincoln Riley, again, what he knows about football is embarrassingly more than what I know about football. But what I know about it is that he's excited what he can do with a guy like Kyler Murray.
The reality for me, I'm on board with you and what you've said, is that the ultimate goal is a national championship.
Mm-hmm. And you can do it with a 1-year quarterback.
But to get there, you've got to run the table, most likely. Yeah. Not always. You can suffer a loss. We'll just say a loss then, okay?
Okay. All right.
If there are 13 games in a season,
you got to win 12 of them.
You would take a 12-1 record over something like 9-4.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's the difference between Austin Kendall and Kyler Murray right now.
Yeah, well, we'll just see. I mean, again, we've got the whole summer. He could get drafted and get $2 million next month and say, see you guys, I don't think that's coming, but I know the pressure's weighing on him. I know it with baseball, they only want Kyler addressing baseball questions now because of that. But we'll know. I mean, we'll know this time next month. We'll kind of have an idea of what his future is like. June 1st, we're going to start rolling out our 2018 football preview. The very first thing is going to be looking at an in-depth look at Oklahoma's offense, going position by position, looking at numbers from last year, looking at projections for this year, who we think is going to start, who we're expecting to jump in there at wide receiver, who's going to replace a guy like Mark Andrews, what can CeeDee Lamb, what can Hollywood Brown do second year as they take on as the go-to guys. That's going to come out June 1st. Heartland-sports.com is where you can find us on Twitter at SportsHeartland and then on Facebook, Heartland Sports. He's Rich. I'm Matt. Thanks so much for participating. Thanks for listening. We want to know your thoughts. If you got a comment as you're listening on YouTube, if you're picking us up on TalkShoe, or if you're just
or if you want
chilling.
to give a complaint.
Yeah, no, we don't do complaints. Or if you're just chilling at heartland-sports.com, leave us a comment. Let us know. If you got questions for future shows, if you got topics you want us to hit up, we're always open to that. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Take care. Thanks again for listening. Boomer Sooner.